I discovered my guest today via his video on his collection of classics. As you'll see later on in this tour, he has the complete 21-volume illustrated Charles Dickens set by Oxford University Press on one of his shelves, plus the Oxford Illustrated Jane Austen. Sam, who hosts the channel Books with Sam, is a YouTuber who got started on YouTube just over a year ago, on January 1st, 2025. He saw immediate success with his first upload, where he reviewed his top 10 books out of the 65 books he read in 2024. Since then, he's had several hit videos, including his end-of-year 2025 review video and multiple best books of all time videos in different categories. In this tour, we explore the books that have shaped Sam's reading life and library, like The Prince of Tides, Shuggie Bain, Small Things Like These, Moby Dick, Independent People, Crime and Punishment, Great Expectations, The Pickwick Papers, Ulysses, The Odyssey, and the Dickens and Austen sets I mentioned earlier. Along the way, we talk about major authors including Pat Conroy, Douglas Stuart, Claire Keegan, Herman Melville, Jane Austen, Charles Dickens, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, James Joyce, Homer, Proust, Victor Hugo, Cormac McCarthy, Brandon Sanderson, George R.R. Martin, Tolkien, Oscar Wilde, Kafka, Chekhov, and Kierkegaard. The tour moves across family dramas, crash and burn romances, fantasy epics, Russian novels, English classics, Icelandic literature, philosophy and theology, chess books, military history, architecture and art books, book talk era recommendations, difficult classics, lifelong reading projects, and the question of how a non-reader becomes a serious, self-directed learner. Before we jump in, just a quick note that there are some bonus resources that go along with this bookshelf tour in the first link in the description. The first bonus is a shared folder where you can download all the high-resolution photos of Sam's library. You'll also get a resources spreadsheet, which gives you links for where you can find some of the key books and other resources we talked about in this video. You'll also get my classics resources spreadsheet, which collects in one place all the key details for the major facing page translation book sets, like the Loeb Classical Library and other similar sets from Harvard University Press, as well as other publishers of facing page translation libraries. You'll also get a free book where I gathered all the best advice about how to manage your library and how to improve your reading from the 55 plus hours of bookshelf tours I've conducted over the past couple of years. Just click the first link in the description to get all of these free bonuses. Also, if you'd like to do a bookshelf tour with me, please email timothy@timothykenny.com. Lastly, a big thank you to all of my students for your continued support that makes these long-form bookshelf tours possible. There's one course and one program that I teach that may interest you and are most relevant to the subjects we cover in this tour. The first item is my self-directed learner course, which will help you build all the skills required to pursue lifelong education through all the key steps like learning project organization, skill investing, research, reading and annotating, note-taking, memorizing, and putting your learning into action directly or through a program of deliberate practice. Please click the second link in the description for more on the self-directed learner course. The second item is the Renaissance program, my guide to building an encyclopedic mind through the classics, the great books, and the best of modern knowledge. We live in a world that rewards specialization, so it can feel almost impossible to recover the kind of broad, well-rounded education earlier eras took for granted. This program gives you a lifelong framework for organizing your learning across history, geography, ideas, facts, literature, human nature, society, and the transcendent. So you can understand the major branches of knowledge, see how they fit together, and develop the unique creative insights that are only possible with this kind of broad base of learning. Please click the third link in the description to learn more about the Renaissance program. If you'd like to learn more about my other courses, programs, and learning tracks, and how you can support the production of these bookshelf tours, please click the fourth link in the description where you can view my complete course catalog. And now let's get into the bookshelf tour with Sam of Books with Sam. Okay, Sam, so thanks a lot for agreeing to do this. And we've got your first set of bookshelves here. So do you want to say a little bit about how you got started with reading, a little bit about your background, and how you've organized your books here? And then we can start going shelf by shelf through your library.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you reaching out. Happy to do this. It should be a fun time. As far as how I got started in reading, I was never a reader as a kid. I was always the one to spark notes or lit chart all my assigned readings in school. I can't actually remember a single book I read for any schooling purpose ever. It was sort of funny to me that I eventually became such an avid reader. It's funny how life works that way. I guess the one thing that it sort of ticked it off was a major life change towards the end of my time at college or university. Time was ticking down for my time at school, and I just didn't know really what I was gonna do with my life. I was working towards a degree in finance and business analytics with no real path going forward. Like no jobs really excited me or things of that nature. So I was just feeling sort of stuck and homesick as well, living alone for the first time in school, being away from friends and family for that long sort of got to me. And so, like most people, millennials or my age do, I turned actually to the Harry Potter movies. That's all going to tie in together here, but just like that sense of comfort and home, I think, is what I was needing at that time, specifically in the summer, before my like last semester of school. Turned to the movies like in my last internship as just like a way to basically pass the time. That sense of comfort and home. I've probably seen them, 100 times each. Growing up as a kid, they were my dad's favorite movies. We used to watch them all the time. I remember going to the theater to see the last one, and it dawned on me, like, as I finished the movies, I'd actually never read all the books all the way through. I'd read the first couple, but never really read any of the other ones because I just wasn't a reader as a kid. And so I was like, "Oh, let me just check these out. Let's see." People say the books are better than the movies. In my head, these are the best movies ever produced, at that time. So let's just see what the books were all about. And yeah, 100% books are better than the movies. And it just sort of went from there, became like instantly a very voracious reader from, I guess, at that time I was 20. I'm 25 now, so I've been a reader for about 5 years now. Um, and yeah, it was interesting because my mom was a big reader. My older sister's a big reader as well, so they were very happy to welcome me in open arms to their little reading soiree. Got started with the Harry Potter books, read the whole series in 2 months or so. I know it's not like the craziest feat or kids' books, but I enjoyed them and immediately jumped on the latest and greatest things in Book Talk and BookTube and picked up things like The Song of Achilles, Priority of an Orange Tree. My mom recommended me to read The Road by McCarthy. Um, and that's just sort of like where it took off. Yeah. As far as, yeah, never really looked back. My taste have obviously waxed and waned since then. Just zooming through some of these shelves, I like to think that I try to organize them by genre or anything, but it just gets sort of jumbled up. You can sort of take a tour of my taste as it's changed over this past half decade or so.
How did you get started with your YouTube channel?
Um, that's a good question. It was maybe a way for me to first and foremost practice just my public speaking skills. That was the sort of bar none reason I wanted to start it, and I was actually living at home at the time. I think I mentioned this in some of my videos. That's why the background changes probably 3 months into my YouTube channels. I moved out of the house, and I did the entire first probably 4 months of the YouTube channel without anyone in my family knowing I was doing that. Um,
How did they find
and I
out?
guess, they still haven't, so we're keeping it a secret for now. Um,
So we're 4 months there.
right, yeah, so
Mhm.
yeah, but the channel was 4 months in. Well, now the channel is 15 months in, and they still don't know. So I started it
Oh, okay.
January 1st, 2025 as just a way to practice public speaking about a hobby that I was enjoying, which was reading books. And it just not to say like it took off, but my first video, I definitely got lucky with the algorithm. I just was like, oh, what videos are doing well? And we just talk about the top 10 books I read last year and see what happens. And my video did pretty well for a first video on a brand new channel and just sort of went with it. The main focus of my channel is just to talk about the books I'm reading and build a little corner of my own community, sort of just mm, I have to think of it as just like an impromptu book club. I have no real like goals or desires with the channel, but just to make it a space for everyone to come and share what they're reading, no matter really what it is, and read at your own pace. And yeah, just hang out. That's sort of the goals here.
Is there anything surprising that's you've learned having the channel for over a year now?
Mm, yeah. Well, one thing that's surprising is how, I guess, how do I put this? Like how much one video can change the channel's trajectory. Essentially, the first year, it took me almost exactly 1 year to go from like 0 to 1,000 subscribers, and then I released like 2 or 3 videos that did very well at the start of the year, and it took me 3 weeks to go from 1,000 to now like 2,100 subscribers. That was surprising in and of itself.
What were those
Trying to
videos?
think. What was that?
What were those videos?
Let me pull up here. I think one of them was like my top 10 of 2025 or 20, yeah, 25.
Wow.
Um, and then one of them was sort of like the books that got me into reading that I wish I could reread again. I guess there were 2 videos of that were sort of like books I wish I could reread again, and then, um, like classically difficult books that were rewarding. Both of those amassed like 30,000 views combined.
All right, so maybe we can jump into the first shelf here.
Yeah.
Is there anything I wanted to ask you about your chess collection? It's cool that maybe there's a meaning there for why chess is where you start.
Yeah, I guess my thinking was just putting all the nonfiction up first because I only have like one shelf of it, and like chess guidebooks I wouldn't classify as like nonfiction literature, but yeah, I guess no real rhyme or reason why I put them there. I've started this chess hobby maybe, I don't even know. It hasn't even been that long, maybe 8 months or so. And when I learned that people wrote books about how to be better at chess, and I was striving to be better at chess, still on and off, I was like, wow, these they wrote books about this. I need to be in on this. I haven't read all of those. I probably haven't even read half of them. As most book collectors know, tastes wax and wane, and um, yeah, it's just interesting to sort of collect these books in a sense. I like to think of it as like my own personal wine cellar of books, and know that I will like these books eventually. Maybe I won't read them all now or this week or this year or whatever time frame, but I'll have them, and I know I will like them eventually. Or I will read them eventually. I know I like them now, so that's sort of the way I've structured my reading. I don't have too many. I'll call them like experimental books. I guess like saying that I have like so many different genres. I always experiment, but I don't have anything that I like would go out on a limb and be like, oh, I might like this. All the stuff I have, I pretty much know I will like, and that makes it one hard to downsize the collection because I know I will and I really like it. But two, it makes it so it just sort of grows this library even more. As far as like chess books are concerned, let's see, I've read that Chess for Dummies one. I've read um that series there by Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan. I think I've read 3 of those first 3 there. Those are very helpful. Any chess beginners out there. Um, it sort of goes more in depth than just like how the pieces move and things of that nature. But yeah, no or rhyme or reason as to why they're first. Maybe to do with also that the top shelf I think is bigger, and these chess books are all different sizes. I think it just sort of looks best there.
What about this inner game of chess?
Oh, that's a recent pickup. I actually have no idea what that one is about. Let me just
Figure maybe it was like the psychology of chess or something.
yeah, I think it's like sort of exactly right. The psychology of it and how to think about not only like playing chess, but learning chess, how to calculate in chess. It sort of uses a different part of your brain, or maybe it uses all of your brain, which is sort of why it drew me to it, less so like a black and white how to chess game, but more philosophical in a sense. And I've sort of tried to arrange them. Maybe this one should have gone in the end, but those last 3 there are just like last 4 there, I guess, or maybe like chess stories that blend into my like nonfiction books. So Endgame there, and there's 2 there for Bobby Fischer. Bobby Fischer Goes to War, and then Endgame as well. I think his story is very inspiring, and a lot of folks can latch on to his success and say it's probably what got them into chess, no matter the age.
And then what are we moving into next year?
So this is like essays. That Backyard Adventure is one of the first books I bought. It's by another YouTuber named Beau Miles. He lives in Australia. I think he has a very interesting niche. His whole thing is that he's a very outdoorsy, adventurous person by nature. He's like kayaked around the southern tip of Africa. He's gone on these like month-long hikes across these very desolate climates. But he's recently had, well, recently now, I guess maybe 5 or 6 years ago, had a daughter, and was more sort of on his homestead, supporting him and his family. And so that the Backyard Adventure is all about making everyday life more adventurous. And it just details some of the adventures he got in before starting his family versus what they look like after, and how he sort of, um, I guess, finds the same wow factor in these quote unquote like smaller adventures. Not that they're any less meaningful, um, but I thought it was just an interesting sort of metaphor for life as times change. I actually don't think you can buy that book anymore. He did like a week sale, and I just happened to be watching the channel when he did it. I mean,
Well,
you could. probably look it up and see, but it was like direct from him when I got it. It's definitely interesting. I would say you're not missing anything by reading the book. I would say it's mostly like because he has a YouTube channel on all of his adventures. He's a filmmaker and things of that nature. And it's just more in depth of things that he talks about on his YouTube channel.
Hmm.
But it's good to read it nonetheless.
Reminds me of the YouTube channel Outdoor Boys.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
I just looked them up. They have almost 20 million subscribers right now. And he disables his comments on the channel. So it's
Interesting.
kind of unique.
Right.
But yeah, really cool kind of adventures. Anything else here stand out?
Um,
What do you think of this Bill O'Reilly one, Killing Jesus?
I actually haven't read that one yet. I recently got it over the holidays. I went to go visit my grandma, and that was one of my grandfather's favorite books. That and the Team of Rivals were. He was a big nonfiction sort of political history reader, and so she said that he would want me to have those, so she gave them to me. And yeah, I heard mixed reviews on Bill O'Reilly, but I'm trying to go in like as unbiased as possible. And then that last one there, Destiny, was my grandmother's favorite book. The same grandmother, and recently read that, and it was good. It was like a collection of short stories that are transcriptions from this guy, Paul Harvey, had a radio show way back when in the 80s, I believe. And he would do like these little like mysteries, but they were all true stories. So things of like how, um, like how back in the day, like local banks decided what currency they would take. There is no standardized currency for the country, and so various banks would produce their own form of currency. Some banks had money or legal tender from a $1 bill all the way up to a $12 bill, um, like in very small, sort of isolated places in the country. They had this, and it was just like little fun, like almost like trivia, but in short story mystery form. I thought it was interesting. She says she's read it probably 4 or 5 times, and she gave it to me.
There's a whole series of these Killing Whoever books by Bill
Right.
O'Reilly and Martin Dugard, who's sort of the researcher. And they've been amazing bestsellers for, I think, the last 10 or 15 years.
Nice. I'll put that on, move it up the priority list.
Bill O'Reilly is really important for the history of TV in sort of being the first to do a more opinionated news anchor program. And I think there's a lot of parallels with YouTube now where you have opinionated individuals covering the news.
Mm.
But of his generation, um, he was the first to really do it in a big way and changed cable um, news forever with his O'Reilly factor. And there's a great interview. There's a great interview with him and Howard Stern. Apparently, they went to some school for media training or communications, or I might be a little off with that, but um, they sort of reminisced about that and some other stuff in that interview. And they're two kind of titans of their era.
Right.
Howard Stern, the shock jock, and really changing radio in somewhat of a similar way. So I sort of think about them in terms of the analog to where we are now with YouTube kind of supplanting network TV in a lot of ways.
That's a good point. Yeah, for sure.
Um, Anything here you want to highlight?
No,
I haven't seen this Baldwin one before. Giovanni's Room.
Yeah, that's interesting. I see it everywhere. I Yeah, that one and Love and Saffron were a duo by. There's this local bookshop near me called the Book Bus, and the gist of what they did is they bought an old VW bus and transformed it into a mobile bookstore. But they have a brick and mortar store that sort of acts as like the garage for this book bus, and they only sell used books via donations. And those two, I would go there probably once a month with my now fiance. We get a coffee to just like peruse the book bus and see what they had. And those two were sort of always in and out of the store. Cool thing about that store is they like vet what books come in, like quality wise. So they're always like new or new condition. So you're getting a pretty good bargain there. I think they sell like a flat rate. Hardcover books are $8, and any paperbacks are $6, no matter like what the book is.
So where are you located, like roughly?
I'm in Ohio, like Southern Ohio.
Okay.
So I would see those. Those are always there, like with their covers facing the bookshelf as like the new ones to get. So I just picked them up. Love and Saffron is interesting. I think it's like a collection of letters and recipes sent between two sisters, and that's just sort of the story of their life written in recipes. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I was just
But
doing a review of the collected letters of Emily Dickinson, and at the very back of it, it's a Harvard University Press. It's one of the ones we gave away from the Harvard University Press tour that I did.
Nice.
And there's several recipes either by Emily Dickinson or in her collection or her favorites. And it's like, I think one of them is gingerbread cookies, and there's some other ones. And they're just sort of tucked away at the very end of that book. And so when I do publish that review, I'm going to make sure I include those pages. So that'll probably be on this channel, or I'm thinking about doing a secondary channel for all the non-bookshelf tour stuff, because it's sort of taken over my channel, and I'm not sure how much interest there's going to be in stuff outside of the bookshelf tours. But yeah, okay. What about Mosquitoland?
That was again a callback to the start of this video. That was one of the books I should have read in school, but never did. And so I gave myself a second chance and took that when I moved out of my parents' house. Still haven't read it, so I guess nothing's changed. But there were like post-it notes. I remember. The only thing I do remember that from that book is there was a character called Poncho Man, and I have no idea anything else about that book. There's a bus, I assume, and it'd be really interesting to sort of see what I think of it now, or what sort of like calls back to memory. Because when I opened the book, there were like post-it notes and annotations in it, like I had read the book. I know pretty well I did not read it back then.
What about these two here with the pink? Or is that one book? It looks kind of like 2 volumes.
Right, yeah, it's just one.
Okay.
Those next two are some of my favorite books, probably of all time. I preach about them on the channel, The Prince of Tides and Shuggie Bain.
Yeah, could you say a little bit about each of them?
Yeah, so The Prince of Tides, where do I even begin? It's definitely a family drama to start. I love a good family drama story. It's sort of this sweeping narrative working in two different timelines told from the point of view of um, this guy, this like brother of this family. So we start out the book. Um, there's this family is very dysfunctional, and you just sort of hear inklings of it. It's told through the point of view of the youngest brother, and he is much older now. He's in his, I guess, his early 40s, and he gets notice from his estranged mother that his twin sister has committed suicide for the third time, and he has to fly out to New York City to go see her and work with the doctors to try and treat whatever sort of mental illness she's struggling with. And that's how the book opens up, and it is through the eyes of this the youngest brother of the family. You go back and forth in time as he's working with these sisters' main psychiatrist in this New York hospital. He is telling stories of their childhood to maybe try and find the root cause of where this mental angst with his sister had originated. And it's just sort of brutal and real as he tells these very messed up stories of their childhood. And um, yeah, he's just sort of sharing it with this psychiatrist. At the same time, they're both falling in love with each other. So balancing that present day love story with the past of the trauma stories that they're telling each other day in and day out while his sister is slowly on the mend. It's a tour de force for sure.
Are there any other books maybe we'll come to later that are similar?
Um, the little one right next to it, Shuggie Bain, is probably similar in its brutality and its uh sort of scope as well. A little bit different of a package with this one. Obviously won the Booker Prize in 2020. But this is essentially the story of Shuggie Bain's mother, Agnes, through the eyes of Shuggie Bain, who is, when the book starts out, I believe he's 5 years old. And so his mother is put in a very hard spot, divorced and sort of just down in the bottom end of luck that life has given her. And she meets multiple men and just can't really seem to make much stick in her life, and it's all told through the point of view of this 5-year-old as he's growing up, and he sees his mom as this superhero and can't really be faulted for anything that she's doing. And you see as he grows up his thoughts sort of change. I believe we end the book and he's 8 years old or something, so not a whole lot of time takes place, and not too much change, but it is noticeable. It's the story of this family in rural Glasgow in, is it Scotland, I believe. And yeah, it's just very, again, it feels realistic. It was, well, probably at the time the quickest I'd ever read a book. I read it in like a day and a half. Just tells the story of this family through the youngest brother's eyes as he's growing up and coming to age. It's like a coming of age story for the entire family. There's, it's just, yeah.
So, would you say that one of the main types of books that you like is the ones that have more of that gritty or realistic um, vibe to them?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, case in point, small things like these. That was one of my favorites from last year as well. Very, a book that punches well of its weight class. A short story, but very heavy hitting.
What kind of TV shows do you watch? Anything kind of similar?
I'm actually not a huge TV person. I'm watching Game of Thrones for the first time right now, which I guess is sacrilege because it's been out for so long as I'm reading the book. But yeah, I'm not a huge TV
Or movies.
one. Yeah, I guess movies. Yeah, my fiance and I like to watch movies. We recently watched Ford versus Ferrari. I thought that was excellent. I watched actually a movie on Bobby. It was like a dramatization of Bobby Fischer's life called Pawn Sacrifice, which I thought was pretty good. Um, so what else? What else? I guess my fiance and I are watching this show called My Lady Jane. It's based on a book, and it's like a parody of English royalty back in the Middle Ages. I think it's very funny. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and yeah, it's just a funny. It's like a fantastical adaptation of Middle Age England, but it's also satirical. It's pretty good.
How do you spell that? Miley?
My Lady Jane.
Oh, My Lady Jane. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Got Infinite Jest here.
Yeah, I haven't read it. I've heard numerous things about it. I don't really know what to think, but it's there.
It's always one of the, if it's on a shelf, it's one of the first ones that kind of sticks out. So
Right, yeah, it's very. Yeah, this is like my uh like hard books just because they're hard shelf, like Infinite Jest,
Gravity's Ramble,
Beau, yeah, Crying of Love 49, things of that nature.
Secret History.
Yeah. But then it's juxtaposed by at the end, Happy Hour and Office Girl, which are very just fun. It's gonna sound wrong, but like frivolous books. They're just like sort of candy to read, and I thought they were excellent. Both of them, both suited their purpose well. You know, just good, feel good stories.
What's the bookshop one about?
So that is about. I guess it's pretty stereotypical about this woman who loses her job and goes to this very small town and opens a bookshop. And that's about it. Same with, I think, Offshore is about this. It's not like a series, but it's by the same author there. I'd actually never heard of her. And the spines definitely caught my attention in the store when I saw them. They both sound interesting. Offshore is about this community that lives on houseboats, and they're all tethered together. It's supposed to be like a microcosm case study on like the world population.
You've got Hollaback here, Serotonin. Any thoughts on that one?
I actually have no idea what that's about. I bought it because it is the name of one of my favorite songs at the time, was called Serotonin. And I was like, oh, there's a book called Serotonin, so I bought it. And it sounds interesting. I can't really remember what it's about. It's probably been on my shelf for 2 years.
Hmm.
No, the song is called Serotonin by Normandy. They're a Swedish band.
I'll look it up.
There you go. And more family dramas with Wally Lamb. I know this much is true. A few people on my channel have recommended that, so I picked up a copy. Um, couple Fredrik Bachman. I haven't read them yet. I watched the movie, A Man Called Otto, the adaptation of it. of a man called, I think it's Uva, is how you pronounce it. But yeah, I haven't read him yet. I feel like that would be it's a really good book if the movie was so good.
What's it about?
It's about this sort of just like grumpy older gentleman, and um I think he has like a run-in with death, and it sort of just changes the outlook he sees on the world. It's like sort of like a Christmas Carol in that sense, where he doesn't really like anyone. My lawn sort of a thing, and he has a coming to Jesus moment. And I think like the second or the last third of the book is how he's a changed man and the ways he gives back to his community and things of that nature.
So the family dramas that you like, do they generally have a happy ending, or they?
They go either way.
Yeah.
I'd say most of them actually don't have a happy end. Well, it depends on what you classify as happy. Yeah, like Prince of Tides was happy and sad just because it ended the the present day story was a happy ending, but the story that they were telling of their childhood was not. So that was interesting in and of itself. It told these two converging storylines. It wasn't like from childhood to present. It was like from childhood until the kids were maybe 18 or 19, and that did not have a happy ending. But the present day one did. Um, Same with Shuggie Bain does not have a happy ending. One of my other favorites. It's called Independent People. It's way down on this list. Also does not have a happy ending. So yeah, maybe I'm just a sucker for not happy endings. I mean, I like them when they happen. I guess I don't really seek them out though.
You've got a couple Nick Hornby books here.
Yeah, I think Nick over at the YouTube channel Books Are Sick gave high praise for High Fidelity, and as just like a very funny but true book about like what it means to be a man. And I thought it was interesting. I actually, funny enough, I tried reading it, but it just wasn't the right time, I don't think. I was like busy reading a different series or something. I just didn't want to interrupt it, I guess. So that's one I need to get around to here soon.
Do you usually read one book at a time?
Oh, heck no. Well, I guess it depends on what I'm reading. Like right now I am because I'm reading Game of Thrones. I'm like almost done with the first book here. And since this is so like all consuming, I am reading one at a time, but generally I'll have like two, maybe three going on at once.
Where do you usually read? Do you have like a reading nook, or?
Mm, Not really a nook. I usually read like in a big comfy chair in my living room. And usually sometimes just right here at this desk. As funny as it sounds, I'll just like put it on my table here. Yeah. I don't discriminate where I read. I have like a reading chair in my library that I never use. I've never read in it once. Like it's like the comfy reading chair and I've never used it. Right now there's a poster sitting on it that's like flattening out. That's funny. Let's see what else stands out here.
What about this one?
Which one?
By Gail Honeyman.
Yeah. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. This one, I think some people read this in school. This was I actually don't know too much about it. I think it was like one of my younger sister's recommendations. I don't know a whole lot about it. I think it is about a coming of age story of a girl that's sort of socially awkward in school. You could probably see why that's recommended reading for school aged people. But think she gifted that to me, and it had been on my list for a while, but I was looking for a copy that wasn't, like, highlighted and underlined by students, and she found one and gave it to me. I don't know a whole lot about it, though.
What about the unbearable lightness of being?
Yeah, that's I don't know why that one is sitting here per se. I guess it makes sense, like, next to No Longer Human and At Night, All Blood is Black. Those are more like philosophical. The Unbearable Lightness of Being and then the Book of Laughter and Forgetting are very sort of like stream of consciousness, philosophical, not even like stories, just like prompts, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know a whole lot about them. They piqued my interest because they were something that was different and unlike anything I had even heard of before. This way to write a story that wasn't really a story, but it wasn't really like anything in and of itself. Just a stream of consciousness that a story somehow comes out of, I thought was a pretty interesting take. And same with the Book of Laughter and Forgetting, it's a similar I think that one is like 7 short stories of, like, coming of age philosophical musings of people.
I think I saw Finnegan's Wake later on in the
Yeah.
library.
Yeah, maybe that belongs next to it. Panenka, that's a good one, that's a feel-good one. That one is that's a romance. I don't say I have, like, a favorite genre per se. I think most of my stuff is pretty even, like, I don't lean one way or another too much, like, in terms of genre. Panenka, I would say, like, a romance story, but I haven't read anything like it because it's told, um or it tells the a romance through the eyes of much older individuals. I think they're in their late 50s rather than a typical, like, modern day romances. The girl is, you know, 21 and the guy is whatever, 24 or something, but this one was interesting because they both people come into the relationship with baggage and just how they navigated their own struggles sort of first and foremost so that they could be the best for each other. It's a short book, but it definitely packs a punch. Hadn't seen too many people recommend that one. I was glad to have stumbled upon it.
What about Hamnet?
Haven't read that. I think that one's like I have actually no idea. I think maybe it's like the parody of, or maybe not even a parody. Maybe like the story of dramatization of the story of Shakespeare and his family.
Hmm.
That one was one when I bought when I was very easily influenced by people on TikTok and BookTube when I was just started reading. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I bought it. We'll probably read it once again, or for the first time, but no real interest to read it soon. I've sort of forgotten what that one was all about.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about that element of your story of like how you got book recommendations very early on TikTok and
Yeah.
I don't know if you said YouTube Shorts, but how have you developed since then, and where do you get recommendations now?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right when I started reading, I think I've watched majority it was like short form on TikTok. Just search up like book recommendations. That's why The Song of Achilles was one of the first books I remember buying. That was huge and still is pretty big on the online booktube space. And since I was so green, I didn't really have a sense of what I knew I liked versus what I knew I didn't like. And so I was taking recommendations from anyone or anything, which is great. Um, that's something I try to not stress on this channel, but uh, or on my channel, but on just sort of how I go about what books I buy or read or want to read is sort of, and this sounds silly, but it was something I wasn't doing back then, probably for the first year, was just like asking yourself, hey, is this a book I actually want to read? Or is it a book that someone is telling me I should want to read? And just doing that quick, like almost like two-factor authentication before you purchase a book, I have found to lead me to reading more and more great books and getting like less so burned on books that weren't necessarily for me. So I guess today, in terms of like what I take recommendations from, really still anywhere, but I guess like the filter I use has changed. Just asking myself that question. I get a lot of good recommendations actually in my comments. People all the time recommend me good books. And I like notice when books get recommended more than once by different people of maybe different demographics or different ages. So those ones definitely float up more to the top of the list. Um, so yeah, I would say the way I take recommendations has changed in the sense because I have a channel now. I didn't back then, but I just sort of ask myself that question before, and it's led me to reading some really good books.
Is AI helpful at all for finding stuff or recommendations?
N I would say no, because AI doesn't know you as well as you know you. It can I've tried that, like, I've tried having, like, AI help with, like, writing short synopsises of books that I have read for, like, video or whatever, and it just doesn't really, like, capture the human element of it.
Mhm.
It sounds like AI. I guess it can be good for, like, just generating broad brushstroke lists for specific genre or interest you have, but I haven't had it be successful in terms of like generating recommendations from the jump.
How would you say book talk is different from booktube?
Uh,
And how much of it is generational versus something else?
that's a good question too. I would say book talk differs just by nature of the beast, by nature of the platform itself. You get rewards more fast fashion. I think I made this word up on my channel. I call it the fast fashionification of reading, and I think TikTok rewards that. It sort of is trendy and grabby and gets grabbed by the algorithm and pushed out more. Um, the way BookTube differs, there is still elements of that. And I think in order to be, this is gonna sound like whatever, but I think in order to be, and everyone's version of like success looks different, but the way to maybe get the most scope onto your channel and your interests and building out the community that you desire is to have like a little bit of that to open the door. And then once people open the door and see like you're still a human and it's you and it's not a 30-second, book talk book review, then they stay and stick around. So that's where I've had the most success. I mean, my channel has gone up 100 and, my channel has expanded probably 150% in the past 2 months. And that's because I've taken a little bit of what works on book talk, some of the more not even like clickbaity things, but just like more interesting topics. But I still do them like my own way, the way BookTube does it. Like BookTube is very like relaxed, down to earth, cozy is a word that gets thrown out around, aesthetic, things of that nature, just like real, I would say. So taking what works for book talk and then meshing it with what is working for me for BookTube, I found to have tremendous success. Um,
Could you give an example or two of that?
yeah, I guess on my own channel, like a thing that I've done, and we'll just throw it back to those two videos of mine that have been more successful. So, like we'll just look at like my most popular video. My title and thumbnail are pretty like attention grabby, but the video is not that really in it of itself at all. So the title, books I do anything in all caps to read for the first time again, big bold letters, erase my memory in the thumbnail there. That definitely is the TikTokification bleeding into the channel, but the video in and of itself is no different than any other video I would have made. And I think that works really well. for YouTube, a lot of clicks, but people are also sticking around to watch the video, and that's really the main thing I look at, not even, like, views, but just, like, retention in general. Are people interested in what I have to say? Um, and that, you can probably just look at a lot of my most popular videos of, like, the top, I don't know, 15 most popular videos. Over half of them are from the last month because I've been using that, sort of switch up in that approach, like getting the fast attention grab from, the likes of Book Talk, but the homey coziness, the meat and potatoes of what makes BookTube special.
I thought the in unhinged 1-star reviews one that's kind of a fun
Yeah.
format.
Yeah, that one was fun to make. It was one of my more interesting videos. I thought that one was gonna snap on the algorithm, but obviously it did not. But it was a good time to just sort of go through. There was some like interesting points there too, on some of my favorite books. But yeah, that one was fun to make. But yeah, I think if you're just like scrolling through my videos, you can see a distinct like change essentially in January of this year. Just a like a little bit more effort into a thumbnail. My channel has doubled in size. So I've sort of used both. I haven't changed who I am or the message I tell, but maybe just getting it out to more people and it sticks. So that's what I would have to sort of say about all that.
I think I think it was the Classics I Actually Love bookshelf tour was how I originally found I think that was the
Yeah.
first video. So we haven't stumbled upon too many of those yet.
Nice. Alrighty. We have up here. So I know some people like organize their books based on season. So maybe the Christmas bookshelf or bookshop looks a little out of place. I was gonna get around to reading that, but I was waist deep in the Lord of the Rings for the first time, and no one could pull me out, so I had to postpone the Christmas bookshop for this year.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because, like, it seems a little bit unusual that with all the stuff that you're reading that you would decide to, like, go all in on, Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings.
Right, yeah.
How did that happen?
I
Were
would
you just burnt out and, like, you wanted something, like, kind of
on
easy?
paper, it makes no sense because, like, the Lord of the Ring or Game of Thrones will probably never be finished, and I wanted, like, um, just, like, a well-written fantasy story that a lot of people liked, and so naturally, I went to The Lord of the Rings. This was and I think it's a seasonal thing too. I've mentioned this on my channel. I think I read more fantasy in the colder months for, like, whatever reason. I have no idea why. But it was around November, and I just, like, wanted a good fantasy story, and so I picked up The Hobbit and immediately read that in one day. It's the only book I've ever read cover to cover in one day, and then picked up Fellowship of the Ring, and that was, like, my holiday reading. I guess I wanted a bit more, um, in terms of I think we're getting into, like, the fantasy books after this shelf, so, yeah, just maybe wanted a bit, like, more wanted the party to continue, and, like, just looking at the Game of Thrones series is definitely all-encompassing, and it has, the show to go alongside it, so a good bit of content just to trickle through for sure.
Do you and your fiance read stuff together or at the same time, or?
No, I would say that's not true. That playbill that's up on the screen there, that's the playbill from, we saw a play adaptation of Little Women, and so for that time, we were watching or reading the same book. Little Women just happens to be her favorite book, and so we wanted to go see the play, um, adaptation of it, and so at that time, we were both reading Little Women at the same time. I would say, like, historically, we don't read the same things. I think she is more into romance books and, like, feel good. She likes this is where we differ. She likes, like, the feel good family dramas, and I like the crash and burn family dramas. And so when she says, like, when she wants to read, she wants to be happy, which is, I mean, fair enough. So she likes, like, feel good romances, feel good family stories, and, um, yeah, but maybe we should read more of the same things, but that's sort of the thing when she moves in here. I have, like, a basically empty shelf for all of her books to reside at.
Could you tilt over your camera? Because I was actually gonna ask you about that before we started recording, like, "Hey, what's that, bookshelf over there?"
Yeah, so this is in my newest edition. Um, my sister was getting rid of it, and so I said, "Hey, I will probably have a large influx of books within the next year in my future wife, so I'll take it." Right now, it is just storing, um, all my newest books that I haven't, like, sorted into my main collection yet, and which is this top shelf here, and then this bottom shelf is actually I did a video on, like, books I'm getting rid of. I forgot yeah, the Great Book Unhaul of 2026, those are still just sitting there on the shelf. And then actually I've started this on the bottom here as part of our should I say this? Whatever, my family doesn't know about the channel, but as part of our wedding, our, like, favors to people because we both love to read, like, part of our wedding favors is I think we're gonna take this bookshelf and fill it full of our favorite books and have that be, like, the wedding favor when people leave, and so I've started a mini collection of that's, like, what's on the bottom shelf there, books that I like that I think others would enjoy as well and would fit the bill for that list. I need, like, 150 of them, so I got a long way to go. But yeah, good question. I was debating on whether or not to include that, but I'm like, there's, like, nothing on it, and it's all disorganized, like, the middle part of that is just gonna get donated here in a second. I'll probably take those to maybe my, like, little library. I thought about making a video just going around donating all those books to the little libraries around me and
Nice.
yeah. Let's see.
So you got some military stuff here.
Yeah, this probably should go up top of, like, nonfiction stuff, but I guess I just lumped all military fiction or nonfiction together. Band of Brothers is a good one. They made obviously the TV show about it as well. It's the second, like, most popular TV show besides Breaking Bad ever produced, according to, like, I don't even know, Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb, I think. And the book was pretty good. Um,
Did you watch the newer one with the air war?
I did, yeah, it wasn't as good.
Yeah. It was unfortunate. I was really hoping they would do something better with that.
Yeah.
But I think it did still I think that the one thing it did do a good job of is just, like, getting you to experience what it must have actually been like up in the air in those planes.
Yeah, for sure. It was definitely very you felt like the floor was gonna drop out from under you. American Sniper was a good one. Um,
Mm.
obviously everyone knows this
Right.
there. This one, yeah, it was more, uh, like just brutal. The way he is, the way he wrote the book, he is just like no nonsense and told you like, exactly how it is. He's a military guy, so obviously probably makes sense. But it's just it's just sort of like chronologically his missions in Afghanistan, and it's just very real and raw. There's some pictures in there too.
And
And
he's got kind of an interesting story in terms of how he died.
right, yeah.
I just put into AI, he was shot and killed at a Texas gun range by a former Marine he was trying to help.
Yeah, he started this, like, rehab program for former Marines that wanted to, like I don't know if it was PTSD or something, or maybe just
Yeah, it
a
was.
way to get back on their feet. Yeah, PTSD, so that he took them to, like, go to the gun range or go have a drink or something. He, like, sorta did this, and one guy freaked out and killed him. And that's, like,
And
sort of how the
yeah.
book ends.
So he was a former US Navy SEAL sniper, and there's the 2014 film American Sniper, and he was credited with 160 confirmed kills during the Iraq War, the most in US military history for a sniper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was Iraq, not Afghanistan, yeah. Oppenheimer's a good one too. They, obviously made a movie. They actually have made movies on all three of those: Oppenheimer, The Hunt for Red October, and American Sniper. But
I didn't watch Oppenheimer.
I did, yeah, I've seen it multiple times. I guess the book is called I always call it Oppenheimer, but the book is called American Prometheus.
Hmm.
I think the book just sort of gives more color to the intricacies of why he was portrayed the way he was, the ties to communism and things of that nature. I think he was truly just like neutral, but I don't know. I mean, I don't even know where the U.S. government was done with him and wanted to make him seem this a certain type of way in a certain type of light and framed him the way he did. And yeah, the book is funny enough. The book is deceivingly long or thick. The pages in that printing for whatever reason are probably 3 times as thick as like regular pages in a book. I don't know what that is, but the actual story is only like 450 pages, maybe 500 pages, and that is how big it is. Yeah, fun fact. And then Hunt for Red October, I've seen the movie. It's one of my dad's favorite movies. I've never read the book.
Is your dad also a big reader?
No. He's read some things here and there, like the Angels and Demons. That's his copy of it. It's where the kickoff into the Dan Brown world. I haven't read any of them. Yeah, it depends on who you ask. You hear good things, you hear bad things. So I think like of folks my parents' age, it's probably one of their top books. And they seem to can't sell them enough in like half price books and things of that nature. But
Yeah. These all three look similar.
yeah, they're just the same publisher. They're from the New York
Review of
Books. Yeah. So that one by Vasily Grossman, The People of Moral, is book one in a trilogy of like it's a war book, so maybe it should go over there. But it is to do I think it tells the story of like the German invasion of the Soviet Union, but through the eyes of the Soviets. So I thought that was a pretty interesting take. There's 3 books in the series, so I grabbed the first one and figured if I would like it. And Hard Rain Falling, I've heard just really good things about from a multitude of different people, mainly online. This last one, The Liar, is is like a Scandinavian family drama. I was like, dude, sign me up. It is about this like secluded island. I believe it's in Finland. I think the author is Danish, I think. And it's about this island community, and it tells the story of this guy that lives on the island, but he's having a love affair with like the school teacher in the island, but the school teacher is having an affair with someone that's on like the mainland, and when the water freezes, they like are trapped on the island. So it's just like sort of a interesting dynamic of they're like landlocked. They know they're landlocked for 4 months out of the year, and then there's this sort of like love square going on. It seemed interesting, and it was like $6 at Half Price Books, and it was a New York Review Books edition. I was like, it can't be bad. So
Any significance with this guy here?
I'm just a raccoon fan, I would say. It's sort of like become a joke in my family. They get me raccoon stuff. So I have it's sort of like my main decor in my apartment. As it turns out, I have multiple little raccoon things around. But I've actually never seen one in real life. I just see like videos of them for where I live, like in a city. I would imagine I would see raccoons all the time, but I've never seen one. No, that's fortunate that my finger covers that. Oh well.
Once they changed the garbage cans to be the standardized things, I think like the raccoons can't get into them, and I don't know what exactly has happened to raccoon population, but it can't be good to
Right.
once that happened.
That's a fair point. All right, these this is where I don't know why these are here. These like I just put them here because they're all the same size. I thought it looked aesthetically cool, but it also makes no sense because those aren't the only hardcover books I own. So if I was truly just going like these are all my hardcover books, and that wouldn't even make sense. Um, there's some good ones in here like Demon Copperhead and the Heaven and Earth grocery store. Those ones have been pretty, as well as A Gentleman in Moscow. Those have been highly revered for as of recent times. Still need to get around to them. I think I want to read David Copperfield before I pick up Demon Copperhead because I think it's like a retelling of David Copperfield, but just sort of the different spin on it. So it would be interesting to compare and contrast the two. A future video in the works.
What's a gentleman in Moscow about?
Um, I think it's about this guy who gets maybe he's put under house arrest or something during some trifling time in Russia. I can't remember what the historical significance of it is, and it's just his life, like basically stuck in this room during this time and what he experiences. I could be completely wrong. I haven't picked that book up in a while. It was one of the books I got at one of my visits to the book bus. I was the only person there. It's like a combo coffee shop book cart or book store, and I was the only person there for so long. I felt bad not buying anything, and I was like, "This is the only book I recognize. I'll just pick it up." Us is pretty unique. It's a romance sort of comedy by David Nichols. It's very dry, witty, British or English humor. It's about this couple, an older couple. They have a son who's 17 years old, and they have this big, grand Europe or tour of Europe trip planned before their son leaves for college. But the night before the trip, the wife wants a divorce. And so they go through this entire trip knowing that they're getting divorced. And it's just sort of like a funny romance book as the guy tries to maybe save the marriage and the woman is maybe humoring him in a way. I thought it was unique and the dryness of it. This is when I sort of immersion read, listening to the narrator as well as reading the book, and he gets I mean, everything sounds better in a British accent, but it sort of comes off the British tact of the dry humor and the one-liners I thought were pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting one.
Yeah. What else? These are sort of like this is where my like, thrillers start. I guess that is the one gap in my library. I'm not a huge thriller person. Maybe I just haven't read enough of them. Sort of starts with Mystic River, and then there's that series there. Um, I read The Housemaid and The Housemaid's Secret. I thought those were okay. I thought it was basically like book 2 was essentially book 1, but with a different font. So it was pretty good. A couple Stephen King books just because I think he's a popular name in reading, and those were some of the books I bought early on before I had developed my own taste, and then that is sort of where it transitions down to more fantasy books.
What was that like developing your taste over time?
Um, it was a unique experience, I'll say, because I, for one, would never have thought that I would like the books I like. Just well, one, I never thought I would become a reader, and two, when I did read books, I didn't think I would love. I would say my like top 2 genres would be these. Not even like a genre, but maybe just a common theme would be these family troubles with a hint of romance in them. I thought I was like for sure a diehard fantasy book lover, or and I still am. I mean, clearly I'm reading fantasy right now. I guess it just goes to show that I don't really have a specific genre I prefer, but or genre I exclude per se. But it was interesting because I was like, why do I like this so much, and why do I keep coming back to this genre? I guess I'm like thinking of myself too in the box of, I'm a man. Maybe I shouldn't like romance books or feel good family books or whatever. Maybe I should like, more visceral and violent fantasy or whatever that, what's it called? Like grimdark fantasy. I think I just enjoy both of them.
Grimoire.
And that's, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I just enjoy it all. I don't really think I have a specific genre I prefer. I just have books I like. And I think once I came to that realization, then that's sort of when the it sort of all changed. That I didn't read a specific genre. I just read books that I liked. All right, you're kicking off fantasy. You have to start with Harry Potter. Read that a couple times now. Just on audio, I think it's good to. Sometimes I throw it on like at work. If I'm doing something mindless, I'll have the audiobook going. I haven't listened to them in a couple of years, but used to do that.
What do you do for work?
I work in software engineering for a bank. It's very glamorous.
Anything crypto related?
Nothing yet. I've heard inklings down the pipeline. Now the big thing is AI, as you can probably imagine, but
Yeah.
into crypto yet.
X Money apparently is going to launch next month.
I saw that, yeah. That'll be interesting. I wonder how we'll fare with that.
You talk a little bit about Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, my first book I read of his, I actually don't have these on this shelf. They're still at my parents because they're just massive. They'd probably make my car scrape the floor or the ground if I put them in there. But the Stormlight Archive, those 5 books were the first of his that I had read, and I thought they were all excellent. I thought the 5th one left a little bit to be desired as like sort of the quote unquote wrap up to the first arc of the story. It was not my favorite. Um, but I think the story in and of itself is sort of all immersive, unlike anything I've really read before, and something that I guess I've kept coming back to, like chasing the dragon, so to speak, of Brandon Sanderson books with, reading um now Game of Thrones and just sort of trying to get in this more like all consuming fantasy, very long, very detailed, but easy to understand and characters to like, and I'm enjoying that with Game of Thrones. I haven't read any of his standalone books by Sanderson yet, so that is, so definitely one thing. It's sort of interesting. I guess I don't really read like standalone fantasy books. If I do read fantasy, it's part of a series, but I also don't read standalone, or I guess I only read like standalone fiction books. I'm not too sure. I guess when I'm in a mood for fantasy, I want it to be lengthy and all consuming, and I sort of go all in on it. But with just like a regular general fiction or contemporary fiction book, I want it to be contained into one volume.
What about this last one here? This is how you lose the Time War.
So that's an interesting concept. I think it's letter based. So it's letters between, I think the main characters are called Red and Blue during a war, I think. And don't know a whole lot about it. I had a used copy of it, but my fiance bought me a new copy of it because she picked it up and thought I would enjoy it. And so, rightfully so, I already had a copy of it. So this is a new copy. Um,
Yeah, I've been getting more into reading letters and epistolary stuff, and just that format I think is really interesting.
yeah, so there's this one and there's Love and Saffron, and I think there's probably another letter based book in this collection, surely. But I think it's just a good way to sort of keep things fresh and unique.
I was just thinking, Frankenstein
Yeah,
has that also.
yeah, for sure.
Is that the bus there?
Yeah,
The book bus?
that's a sticker from the book bus. Some trinkety things.
These definitely caught my eye. The Oxford Illustrated Jane Austen. I don't know if you can actually pull one off the shelf and hold it up to the camera because I'm really interested to what these look like inside.
So they're all various degrees of faded. So here's like, man, well, I guess I'll just go through each of them. So
Yeah.
Pride and Prejudice. I have them in like order, like publication order. So Pride and Prejudice. This one was hard to come by because it's her most popular work. I actually found this on eBay for a pretty good steal. The other 5 I found at half price books for maybe $6 or $7 each, which was a real steal. And then this one was retailing like on used book outlets for maybe $300. Like there's no way I'm paying. So I found it on eBay for uh $25, I think. So I immediately grabbed it.
What's the year on those?
Uh
Like the original? Because they look like they were a long time ago.
1986.
Oh, okay.
But the first edition of these Oxfords came out in 1920.
Yeah, that's what I was saying with the artwork.
Yeah, so and it also has all the original illustrations from when she wrote the books in the 17 whatevers. Early
Yeah, could you show a couple of those? Because
1800s. Yeah.
I think it'd be cool to.
So it has all of her, and that's the same with the Dickens that I have.
I actually just
I don't
recorded a bookshelf tour a week or two ago with a woman who's like got a ton of Jane Austen stuff and like collects all these different editions, and she didn't have that one, so this will be a good
wonder.
addition to that.
Yeah, there are not too many illustrations, definitely less so than
Yeah, I didn't remember there being a huge number of them in the original. Um, are there introductions like new? Do they give you any kind of introduction or context at the beginning before the story starts?
a little bit. Not Hold on, I'm trying to. They're called the Oxford Illustrated. I can't seem to find a single illustration.
They don't give you they don't give a table contents of.
No, it's just chapters.
Yeah.
I guess maybe they'd be in the back in the appendix. Maybe.
So do you like Jane Austen?
I do, of what I've read. I've only read Pride and Prejudice, this, and my Charles Dickens collections, I think, are sort of just gonna be like a lifelong project. I have no idea if this even I can't even remember what part of the story this is from Pride and Prejudice, but it has this very doesn't even look like where the story took place.
Yeah.
I have no like, there's not a single piece of land in what was this, England at the time that looks like this, so I don't know what this is even about. But they do have those cool illustrations on the cover. I guess, yeah, back to, like, just having them be lifelong projects and just reading goals to eventually read all of their works. I think they're obviously tour de forces in English literature. Here's one.
They kind of.
Northanger Abbey.
Yeah. Could you hold it up a little
Servants.
bit closer because you get some of the detail? Yeah. That gives a good feel for the style.
Yeah. She didn't have not a whole lot of images, but if they are, I think they're just in the start or between parts of the book. Part 1, part 2, for example. Just saw another one.
So would you say those kind of line up with your interest in the family novels we've talked about, family dynamics?
Yeah, I would say so. And um, just as like an enjoyer of literature as a whole, maybe it seems like Austen and Dickens are definitely the greats, I would say, in terms of that. And the two different eras I've been corrected multiple times on my channel of writing. One is Austen is a Regency and Dickens is Victorian, so two different eras, but still very much so titans in their weight class, and I think something that everyone should read if they have the interest in doing so. And so, yeah, so things like I have the full Jane Austen works, the full Dickens works. I have the popular series by Proust in remembrance of lost time. And these are just sort of be lifelong projects I chip through to read all of their works. And just going back to my like wine cellar comment about my bookshelves and curating them to be a lifelong thing. This definitely fits the bill for that.
Got the Sherlock Holmes here.
Yeah, that was my grandfather's set. Um, the complete volumes. I think they still have the original price tags on them. I think he picked them up from a secondhand shop way back when for $15. So those are definitely, we'll call them family heirloom books. I think they're called book club editions. So like large print and being meant to be passed around. So those are cool.
And books like these are
My
false books.
bookmark. Yeah, those are sort of bookends. You can store stuff in them. I don't think I have anything in them. I should probably put those on a larger shelf so they hold up more books, but I think they look all right for where they are. And then, yeah, that Heaven Has No Favorites, just one of my all-time favorite books. I think this is a romance. We classify as a romance, not necessarily a family drama per se, but it's a story of this race car driver who goes to visit his teammate, his like racing partner's just goes to check up on him in a hospital in the Alps, and then falls in love with one of the patients there, and it's a study of like love and mortality, and is it I guess happy ending can be decided by the reader, but I definitely enjoyed it. And that's a first edition. I ordered it I actually had my first copy. It was not a first edition. It was just like a hardcover, no dust jacket, no nothing. And I read it. I gave it to my grandma to read, who she enjoyed it. And I actually ordered another copy off of Thrift Books, just a regular. They didn't say anything special. It was just a hardcover from Thrift Books. I think it was $4.50 or something, $4.50, and they sent me a hardcover first edition with a dust jacket protector.
Do you know what year it is? Because it's got a very distinctive style to it.
Let's see here. It's 1961. You can see that.
Yeah, let me just
Yeah. First edition. So I thought that was pretty cool. With the like dust jacket cover on it and everything.
you've got the Bible here, New Living Translation.
Mm-hmm.
You making your way through that, or you've read that?
I've read bits and pieces of it in like through Sunday school and church. I haven't really read it. And that is one that I'm interested to read now that I have this new, I'll call it like mindset as a reader, reading the Bible as just like a book lover rather than maybe a religious scholar, and see what differences I notice coming out of it. Because they're all true stories, obviously, but they're stories too at the end of the day. And so just going in maybe with a different lens to see if it hits in a different way, as a book lover rather than a scholar of it per se. And it should just be, there's always something to learn. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting aspect. And there's books that have like Bible as literature and the title, or courses like that and stuff on YouTube as well. That's good.
Yeah.
Because there's all these genres that are used in the Bible that we don't really have anymore, or you don't really see every day. And so it can help to have some of that context before going in.
Right. That's a fair point. Yeah, I'll have to look into this. All right, started my like solo dedicated fantasy shelf. I read, there's a trilogy here that's not seen. I forget what it's called. The first book is called Shadow and Bone by Lee Bardugo. I thought that was pretty interesting. Again, back with like the series of fantasy books. It's not on the shelf, unfortunately. I think it's at my parents'. So yeah, not pictured, but definitely a good one. Sort of like a chosen one type deal. What else here? I haven't book one of the Wheel of Time. I've not taken the plunge. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. Yeah, good ones all around.
Do you do a fair amount of running?
I'm a fair weather runner, I'll say. So once the weather is warmer, I try to run maybe twice a week or so, just for general health purposes. That was a charity 5K I ran with my fiance last year. Song of Achilles again. I'm interested to read this Nevernight series. It is fantasy series about this like assassin, and she works for some kingdom, and just to sort of see what happens, because the whole one, it's a completed series, so I guess I'm not completing it with Game of Thrones, and it's short and contained and seems very similar to, I read, also not pictured here, I read, um, oh god, what's it called? Throne of Glass. Back then, or maybe a year ago, I read Throne of Glass. I liked the first half of the series, and then I thought the second half was not the best. So hopefully this gives me more of that like assassin-y fantasy feel with maybe less on the nose romance, I'll call it. Yeah, a lot of these are like starts to series just to read the book and see if I enjoy it. Then I'll pick up the next, maybe some sci-fi here.
Did you read Jurassic Park?
I haven't yet. This is one I need to get around to. Red Rising was one of those series I bought when I first started reading, and those were good. Those were, I think I read the first 4 and then sort of fell off of it. This was probably like 4 years ago now at this point that I read those. That's a pretty good sci-fi series. Excited to have it be finished. I have heard that the last book is coming out. Book 7 is coming out this year, so I'll probably reread the series in time and finish out the story.
Got out of mouth.
Yeah, that Foundation trilogy I just got for Christmas. That was my dad's favorite growing up. It's a
Wow.
theme of like family favorites.
Narnia.
Yeah, I've read the first 2 or 3. Um, they're they're good. I think they're very much just like, read one in between a bigger project like Game of Thrones or something like that if I want a little fantasy.
You got Berserk here.
Yeah, I was scared to read those. I picked those up. I've never read manga or anything of that nature, but I've just heard like such, not even polarizing, but just like this series is crazy. You should check it out. And yeah, I read like the first 20 pages of the first one, and I was like, this is, yeah. I'll probably revisit it, but wasn't a huge fan, I'll say.
Somebody recommended it to Greg of Reddit, who was the first bookshelf tour ever, and it really does start in the middle of the action and kind of. I also haven't read a lot of manga, and I'm meaning to go back to it, so this is a good reminder.
Yeah, middle of the action for sure. And just like, also there's so many books. Like, do I want to read, I don't even know how many volumes it is now, like 45 volumes of this?
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna, just like in cost alone, get them secondhand. It costs $300 or $400 just to read this manga.
I remember actually looking at the list of volumes, and it wasn't actually obvious where you start, because I think
Right.
there were like prequels and there were other things, and it took me a little while just to figure that out.
Yeah.
There's Women.
Yep. These are, so we're getting into classics here. They're sort of in author alphabetical order. But Little Women was my most recent read, so or one of my more recent reads, so I just threw it on top. I like the like design of these shelves. They look good sort of sitting out. I have another one in the sort of main area of my living room.
When you sent me
Um,
these photos, I was looking up what they're actually called, and apparently they're
yeah.
called a tree. bookcase.
Yeah, something like that. I got one. I think I got one for like my birthday last year, and then I got another one for Christmas. I thought it would just be a good way to display
Yeah.
all my classic books because they all fit. But now they're starting to get overwhelmed, so I may need a different solution to that, or just another tree bookshelf. But I don't really want to buy like another one and then have to resort them all by author name. I don't know why this is the only shelf I have sorted alphabetically. I guess it just sort of makes sense with classic books. Yeah, Little Women's a good one to call out. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn was also a good feel-good family story. It has something in it for everyone. It's got romance, good family drama. I would say a coming-of-age story with a strong female protagonist. That one was one of my favorites. I've yet to read East of Eden. I've heard very good things about that one. So, uh, that and Of Human Bondage by
I was going to ask you about this one.
Morm. Yeah, I think that one is about. I think I bought this one like almost as like a joke, and I didn't even know what the book was about. I was book shopping with my fiance, and I read the back of this book, and I was like, "Oh, this book is about a guy that travels to Paris and falls in love with an artist, and then comes back home and doesn't really know what to do with his life." And my fiance is a graphic designer; she's very artsy, and she thought that was hilarious. That this seemingly very straight and narrow man, um, who had everything going for him, sort of derails his entire life in a lustful act for the artist. And I was like, okay, yeah, I see what she was putting down. And so I bought it. I didn't even know it was like a very popular or very well renowned book. And so I was, I thought the premise of it was funny to my girlfriend, and that's why I bought it. And it just happened to be a really good book. So I'm double excited to read it now.
Makes me think of the Scarlet Letter a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. First Love was good. This is by Ivan Turgenev. It's short. It tells 4 stories. It's these guys that are just like sitting around the table having drinks with each other, and tells um the story of each of their first loves. I thought it was pretty interesting. I haven't read anything else on that sort of section of the shelf. There's some big ones in there by Tolstoy, so I think those are the rest of them are all by Tolstoy. Is that interesting? There's always debate on what translator to get when it comes to any translated work. Specifically, there's a big sort of micro community online with Russian translators, but obviously do your own research. And what I did was just read different passages, the same passages by different translators of these works, and just see which one I enjoyed the best. And that just happened to be the Previr and Volokonsky translation of Tolstoy, um, also known as the P&V. I did that for Dostoevsky too. But this is also known as like that doesn't capture the like Russian essence, and this is probably they call it the most like Americanized version of it. So on one of my most popular shorts is, I guess my most popular video is about Crime and Punishment, like why you should read it, and I get flamed all the time because I read the wrong translation, and it just gives it more rereadability, to maybe read the same novel but in a different translation.
Yeah.
Treasure Island is a good one. I have a couple more short ones by Steinbeck. I don't know why they're not by East of Eden, but alas, here we are. I think Treasure Island and then those bottom 3 there by Jules Verne are sort of in a similar light of like classic books that maybe um, challenge you in the ways just because they're written in a different style than modern books, but they tell a sort of adventurous story that is very easily digestible and entertaining. It just has entertainment value. So I think that's like a good or just like an interesting way to look at books, like depending on like how like serious of a book you want, whether you want to be challenged by the language or the story or both or none. You can sort of mend it and you can go from there. And this is a nice happy medium.
Got some Oscar Wilde. Candide.
Yeah. I read A Picture of Dorian Gray. I need to reread that. That's on my list. That was one of my first books I read when I like got into reading 5 years ago. And just to be frank, I did not understand it at all. Because I was so I pretty much went from like reading Harry Potter to reading The Picture of Dorian Gray, and that was less than ideal. So that's one I need to pick back up and revisit.
Did you read his prison writings or this one?
I haven't yet. That's a rather new acquisition. That one is interesting. I think he like throws someone in or like gets someone thrown in jail for basically leading them on in a romantic sense and like blackmailing them. I think it should be I need to like I was gonna brush up on the historical relevance of it. But yeah, it should be interesting. And the last one there, We by Yevgeny Zamyatin. That's I was at where was I? I think it was at like Half Price Books I bought 1984 by Orwell, and the person at the counter recommended me to pick up that one too. It's like a lesser known dystopia around the same time. This one's sort of dealing with the Russian view of it, and it should be interesting to get into that one too.
Do you think about kind of national great works like like the great Russian novels and great French authors and
I
stuff like that?
Yeah, I do. I wouldn't say I put too much like stock into it. I guess obviously with like my Austen works and Dickens with the whole English portion of it. And now I have most of the works of Tolstoy and Dostoevsky and yeah, I got the famous works by Proust and Victor Hugo, and there are definitely like titans in each nationalist genre. I think they're like where like the line is drawn is they're just interesting to have and collect and have it be just this, like a talking point. But I don't really put too much stock into where the author was from. I guess actively when I'm reading it, probably I should, but I wouldn't say I do a whole lot. Let's see here. Ethan Frome, that was again sort of similar to um the Oscar Wilde works. I read that essentially right after The Picture of Dorian Gray and did not get it at all. So need to revisit that one. That was a short one. Huckleberry Finn, that was a good one. Um, I actually listened to that on audio for the majority of it, and I thought that was an excellent way to do it because of the dialect written or how the book was written in that specific dialect. I thought it was very well done and easy to listen to and understand. What else?
So guys, it's like you can't go home again.
Yeah, this one was a spur of the moment purchase because I just thought the title was captivating. This is about an author who writes a story about his hometown and then leaves. He basically like gets big about writing about his hometown and then leaves. I think once he makes it big and then tries to come home and is met with all sorts of backlash from his from everyone.
Hmm.
I don't know, obviously, how much of a story there is to tell in that big volume, so we'll have to see. This is sort of like where I keep my they're all mass market paperback classics, but this is where, like, the historical, like, school books would go. So 1984, Lord of the Flies, Siddhartha, Frankenstein.
I don't think I've ever seen this Johnny got his gun before.
Yeah, that's like a anti-war propaganda book about the Vietnam War, actually. It's very similar to All Quiet on the Western Front, but told about the Vietnam War.
And what's the green one at the bottom?
That's called Franny and Zooey, or Zoe,
No.
by J.D. Salinger. I picked that up after I read Catcher in the Rye. It'll be interesting to get around. I plan on doing another video, like, revisiting high school books I should have read. I made one previously talking about Catcher in the Rye, 1984, and Lord of the Flies. I plan on sort of revisiting the likes of To Kill a Mockingbird, Siddhartha, and Frankenstein, books I should have read in school, but didn't necessarily get the most out of them.
Yeah, I think I've been actually thinking of doing something similar in terms of rereading some of the. I actually have like I haven't looked at them, but I actually have a lot of my school essays that I wrote and stuff. And I think it'd be cool to like go back and see what I how I must have been reading stuff and interpreting things. And um there's also trying to remember which bookshelf tour it was, but kind of thinking about children's literature and for your kids and what kind of stuff you want to get them. Actually, one of them was Nancy Drew. So the woman who had the Jane Austen collection, she had the complete revised yellow and blue Nancy Drew. I think it's 50 or 60 volumes. And that's like a famous one. That and Hardy Boys are sort of famous children's literature and sort of it's got that detective angle to it. Um,
Interesting, yeah. And then the bottom of the shelf is sort of a hodgepodge. I put my complete works of Shakespeare down there to sort of anchor it. This is where all my uh, plays are. Yeah, you can check out.
I've been seeing a ton of Chekhov lately. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, he's probably more in vogue, I guess. I guess that's another benefit of BookTube.
Why is that? Has Chekhov been big on Book Talk,
Yeah,
BookTube,
I would say.
Book Talk? You would say?
Yeah, right, because it just sort of it's the way to sort of blast media out there, and a lot of people have enjoyed his plays because they're shorter and, I mean, it's sort of a good entryway into Russian literature with, like, bite-sized plays, right? Rather than picking up a giant Russian tome.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. It's probably why I picked it up. I've had it for maybe a couple of years now, but, actually, that's, like, one thing I need to read more is read more plays. I've read, like, Romeo and Juliet. That was actually the one I did read in school that it's bookmarked in there as one to go back and look at, but read plays is something I need to go and do, and that's where all of my plays are. So I got Chekhov and Shakespeare and some of the Greek tragedies down there as well, and then uh, Paradise Lost, I think, is a poem, which should be interesting. It's a poem on or poetry, the downfall of Satan, I believe. And then under that, you can't see it, which do the awesome cameraman skills, but under Paradise Lost is the story of Gilgamesh, apparently the first novel ever written on, like, stones in Mesopotamia. So it's a Penguin classic. It should be interesting. And then Moby Dick, one of my all-time favorites. It's actually my mom's favorite book of all time is Moby Dick, and that was the copy she got as a college graduation present from her mom, from my grandma, and same with the one below it is one of her other favorites, A Ring with a View by E.M. Forrester. So have those two sitting there. There's a ton of videos on Moby Dick. I think it's one of the greatest books ever.
Why is that?
I think it just sort of hits on so many points. It's one of the books that I felt like took me on a journey as the characters were going on this journey. They're on this epic whaling voyage is sort of like the plot that pulls you along, but you yourself get pulled on this journey of, um, the history of whaling in general and the history of whaling ships and the different ways that whale goods are created. Like, how is the whale blubber, you know, manufactured in a way to make it different goods for people. It's a study. It's very theological as well. There's very much Christian values and preachings in it as well. I think it quotes scripture a myriad of times. And as the underlying sort of plot is chugging along of the sailors on the Pequod hunting down the white whale, you as well are coming to grips with all this new information that is sort of just thrown in there. This entire chapters on how, like, Roman architecture back in the day is based off of the sinew structures that are in the whale tail, and that's like where the Roman arches got their name, is because that's sort of very strong architecture, or the strong building practices that they found in whale sinew, just the way the things were structured in the animals they took into their own practice. So it's like little nuggets of information like that that really makes it a worthwhile read, as well as just being an interesting story. And the way it ends is, not to be spoilery, but the way it ends is very interesting. As far as just all comes to a head and then the book ends. There's really no like drawdown. And then, this is starting with the A's of my classics. This is the one in my living room. It's like the way it looks. There's a lot of bright colored books in the A's and B's and C's of my classics collection. Some to know. I've read Notes from Underground. That one just didn't fit with the rest of my Dostoevsky books, so I just threw it up there. I thought that was interesting. Probably need to revisit that. I tabbed it on just like some very high level points on sentences that I thought were interesting. This was probably a year and a half ago I've read it. So
Can you talk a little bit more about how you annotate or how you use sticky notes or just how you kind of all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I don't do it often, truth be told. I think I've only tabbed or annotated 3 or 4 books ever of the hundreds I have read. So when I do, it's definitely very, one, interesting, or two, a good book. I think I would just don't really have a system or things I go about. Like, I don't use different colored tabs for different themes or things I'm trying to identify. I would say I just look at one, either like profound statements. I guess in the case for this one, Notes from Underground, written in the late 1800s, making statements about society today that are still prevalent about, think maybe things like work ethic, or maybe how people use cheap ways to get ahead, or things of that nature. Like, there things like that still remain true today, but maybe they're 200-year-old ideas, maybe not even 200-year-old ideas, but being talked about 200 years ago. I just think it's fascinating. And it's probably one of the reasons why my biggest portions of my collection is these classic books, is because I find that so rewarding to read when individuals, it could be fact or fiction, have similar experiences to me in my day-to-day life that they did, 100, 200 years ago. Yeah, I guess back to the point there, I don't tab a whole lot. It's just, to do with things I find interesting or would want to revisit, or makes sense in today's day and age.
There's a Wuthering Heights movie.
Yeah. I've seen decent reviews on it. I think I haven't really paid too much attention to it. I haven't read the book yet. My older sister was trying to read the book, but could never really sink her teeth into it too much before the movie came out. I watched the Pride and Prejudice, a lot of Pride and Prejudice adaptations, but I watched one of the movies after I read the book on Valentine's Day, actually, with my fiance, and I thought that was very well done. I'll have to look up what edition it was. It was one of the newer ones, 2014, I think. Um, Speaking of movie adaptations, A Clockwork Orange, I loved the book, I just couldn't get into the movie. I knew exactly what the story was about. It's very brutal and on the nose about these, essentially like a British gang that just gets up to a bunch of nonsense and violence, but there's more to it than that, but that's sort of the first third of the book. The movie was just like, I don't know, so, uh, like not even, like so unwatered down, so saturated in that sort of stuff. It was like borderline unwatchable for me at least.
There
It
was
made no
something
sense.
very
It's the same story as the book.
there was something very strange about that movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it had like a eerie aura about it, which I guess was the point, but yeah.
It was like too unrealistic in some way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a famous movie.
It is, yeah. I don't know if the book is the same Breakfast at Tiffany's as the movie. I don't know much about either, unfortunately.
More Chekhov at the bottom.
Yeah. His short stories. Happy All the Time is an interesting one. It's a romance, but it is to do with like platonic romance with between friends and couples as friends. I thought it was an interesting take and a pretty progressive take at its time.
How old is it?
Uh 20s, I think, 1920s, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then Dostoevsky, I have basically all of his major works, all in the Pavir Volokonsky translation, most in the same edition, so they're pretty matchy. I think I've read White Knights and Crime and Punishments. Brothers Karamazov is one that gets recommended everywhere, and people in my comments definitely recommend it a ton. Um, on sort of all videos I make about rewarding books or my top books, that's always recommended. So it's one that I need to get around to. Same with the Count of Monte Cristo. I read that um maybe 2 years ago, and definitely well worth the payoff at the end. Very revenge story. Let's see what else. Faulkner in there. That's except if I'm in the mood. I've heard that's notoriously difficult to get into. Maybe very hard writing style to read it. I think especially the Sound and the Fury. The bottom one there is notoriously difficult. Maybe on a similar note to like Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake, as it's probably right below this shelf. But yeah, probably could have taken a better shot here. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, some good French authors there. Les Mis, Madame Bovary. Les Mis, my fiance is big into theater, so she's seen the play multiple times. I want to read the book and then go see the play with her eventually. This funny story about the Jungle Book or the Jungle Books. I knew it was a movie, a very famous movie that I watched all the time growing up as a kid. I never actually knew it was a book, as funny as it sounds. Story of Mowgli and all the animals in the jungle. I didn't know it was a book, and so when I saw the title in the bookstore, I picked it up and I was like, well, I'll be damned, it is a book. So I had to get it.
Got some Kafka here.
Yeah, the Metamorphosis I thought was pretty good, pretty weird, but interesting. The castle is very slow, I thought. I don't really remember a whole lot about it, to be honest. It was probably that slow to me. Maybe one to revisit in 10 years' time or so as my tastes adapt. What else? Portrait of a Lady. It's a famous one, a long one. And then I have most of Joyce's, I think all of Joyce's novels, Dubliners, Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, Ulysses, and Finnegan's Wake.
How'd you get into his stuff?
I think I just wanted to read Ulysses because I heard it was sort of this notoriously difficult work, but very rewarding. I actually watched a video by Benjamin McAvoy, who is a big classics guy in the booktube space. I like the way he does his videos, and I've mentioned him multiple times on my channel. He likes Ulysses as a way to sort of check in on how like well read one is. I don't really care how well read I am by like a book standard, but I do like that idea of it being like a checkpoint book. And each time you read it, you maybe understand more and more. There's a lot of allusions to other works. I think there's like direct quotes from Shakespeare and obviously Homer's Odyssey as it's based off of, and things of that nature. And so as you read more of those works and you revisit Ulysses, you understand it more. And that concept was just interesting to me. So I picked up Ulysses and I heard it was notoriously difficult. And so I looked online as to like, how do I best acquaint myself with this writing style? And everyone suggested starting with Dubliners and then reading A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. And that's exactly what I did. I thought Dubliners was fantastic. It's 12 short stories of just people in Ireland, or of Dublin, Dubliners, like the people of Dublin. It's just 12 short stories of them. And I thought it was digestible and interesting and captivating, unlike Joyce's more magnum opus works. A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, it took me a bit to get into, a bit more confusing and convoluted with just his writing style, but I think you have to shift your mind into a different gear to read some of his stuff. And that was the last Joyce book I read. I plan on reading Ulysses sometime in the summertime this year. June 16th is they call it International Balloons Day, which is the day I think that this book takes place. It's just one day in the life of the main characters is this whole book. And so I thought it would be interesting to start it on that day. But before that, I have a couple of books I want to read through before I dive in, mainly Homer's Odyssey. And I think that book sort of at the bottom left there is a like chapter by chapter guide on Ulysses. Yeah, the new Bloomsday book, a guide through it. So that's sort of like, and then beneath that is How to Read a Book by Mortimer J. Adler. I think that is, I've read chapters of it, which like how to get the most out of reading various types of works. I don't think it's one you necessarily read cover to cover like it's a fiction book, but maybe one to reference. So I'll reference a couple more chapters before Ulysses. And then beneath both of those is sticking out sort of towards the bottom there, the gray and black and red is Homer's Odyssey. I don't know too much about the translation that I have, so maybe got the least optimal one, but it was $1, so I picked it up. So I'll read.
I think Christopher Nolan is working on a film.
Yeah, I saw that. Definitely excited for that. So I guess it's a two-faced goal to read the Odyssey, one for Ulysses and two for that movie that has to be good.
Yeah.
And some westerns at the bottom. Larry McMurtry, and then The Road, Cormac McCarthy, and I guess not a western, Lolita by Nabokov. Heard Lolita is good but very disturbing, so I need to be in the right headspace for it. Also, a book I didn't know was a movie. A movie I didn't know was a book. Cheaper by the dozen. Sort of had the similar reaction to Finding the Jungle Book. Did not know that was a book, and it's pretty short, so I picked it up, and it should be a good sort of, I guess, similar in vein to like Treasure Island or the books by Jules Verne. Just a fun book to maybe be challenged in the language side of things, but not on the plot or story side of things. Just a feel good book.
They have an interesting history, the Gilbreths, in terms of like early productivity
Right.
stuff.
Yeah, and like maximum efficiency within the family and stuff like that. So it should be interesting. Fight Club was good. Unfortunately, I caught it. This is one of the downsides of Book Talk or Bookstagram or whatever the hell. I just typed into TikTok Fight Club and got the entire premise of the story spoiled like by chapter 3. As I watched one TikTok edit of Fight Club that are very popular, and it spoiled the entire like twist of the book, essentially. I guess it made it easier to understand because, you kept getting hinted at various things, but it was unfortunate.
Any thoughts on the Bell Jar?
I haven't read it yet, but sort of similar to Lolita in the sense that I've heard really good things about it. Can be maybe disturbing is the wrong word to use, but can be
Heavy.
Yeah, heavy. So we'll get there when we get there.
The Louvre.
For sure. Yeah, I actually got that from the Louvre when I visited.
Oh, awesome.
I
was wondering because you actually a few photos ago, I was going to ask you like, what's the deal with the Paris?
Yeah, I got that in Paris too at the Eiffel. I got that on top of the Eiffel Tower.
When'd you
Scammed. When?
Yeah.
Went back. It's actually in high school for an AP European history class. We did like a spring break learning trip there essentially. So it was a while ago now, probably a decade ago, but yeah, still have mementos from it and plan to go back to Paris and like retrace my steps potentially for my honeymoon coming up in the next year or so. Yeah, I got this book. It's very big and heavy. I get details. I think it's almost every piece of art in the Louvre. It's just a good coffee table book. Yeah. A good story to tell, like for guests that come over. Above that, Frank Lloyd Wright is all of his residential property. He's a very prolific American architect during the sort of mid-century era. I think this is all of his residential works, all the houses he made. I'm very interested in like mid-century design and architecture. I think it's very homey and cozy and sort of the way I want my future house to potentially feel. And so been interested in not just his works, but I have a book by another architect, Lautner, and I watched some of their, like, obviously they don't have videos, but people make videos on their houses and they're just various architecture styles. I guess that's one of the reasons I like reading, because there's so many different interests you could go into: chess, architecture, art, storytelling in general. It's really never ending. And then the top one there is the Time top 100 images of the century, I think.
Oh, well.
Um,
Yeah,
so
Time puts out a lot of interesting, like, even their special edition, like, magazines. It is pretty useful to have that kind of sense of the photos of different
right.
periods of time, and it's rare that you actually get everything collected in one place. And I think they're kind of unique and doing a really good job with that. They're pretty pricey though.
Yeah, for sure. And just getting the context behind it as well, because we all have seen the images, but why is it so important, or what does it signify? Things of that nature, I think, is something that this book details well. A magazine there over on the top. Um, I guess a portrait of
What magazine is it? Is that significant?
it's Car and Driver, one of the car magazines of the era. I think one of my dad's favorites. So he gave that to me, and then right next to that is another architecture book. I just sort of have them laying out. That one's by the residential works by John Lautner.
Hmm.
Actually, that was a birthday present from my fiance. But yeah, interesting. Just that reading can take a different approach.
Anyways, I'm not familiar with this author, Laxness.
Yeah, yeah. That's why he's got a special shelf in the middle of my living room. That Independent People, I think I alluded to earlier, is one of my favorite books. A family drama with not necessarily a happy ending. It's one of the ones I have tabbed as well. Um, and this, I was sort of debating whether or not after reading Independent People, whether or not I just blow through all of his books, but I figured I would read them slow if he is, if Independent People is one of my more, highly acclaimed books. I think I'd sort of pump the brakes and experience them at different seasons of life and just see how I enjoy them as I age. I think he's if not, he's Icelandic. He's one of, if not probably the most influential Icelandic person, I guess I would say. He won the Nobel Prize for Independent People back in the 60s. And actually, I wasn't even looking for that book when I picked it up. I was looking for Under the Glacier. I was watching a big booktuber. I think her channel name is just Emmy. She has like 450,000 subscribers. I'm sure you've seen her stuff. I like the way that she just seemingly reads what she likes and doesn't really care what other people think. Her videos, she'll read some fantasy romance and then tie it in and also be reading something for her English lit degree, like, at the same time. It's like, that's awesome. I want to do that.
She's got a great on the shelf tour on her channel.
She does, yeah, multiple. I love the way she has organized her books, and those shelves are like the staple of her entire apartment. I think she's moving or soon, so it'll be interesting to see what that entails.
Sorry,
But anyways, yeah,
interrupted you.
recommended. No, all good, all good. I love that. She recommended Under the Glacier. She picked it up. She obviously, I think one of her favorite things to read about is snow and ice and glaciers and things, and so she was captivated by the title of itself, Under the Glacier. I think this tells, actually I know this tells the story of a missionary, like a Christian missionary that goes to Iceland to basically just see what's going on and sort of take a peek under the glacier, into this sort of remote area in Iceland, and she loved it. And so I added it to my list as book to potentially check out. And so I was just browsing around half-price books, and I saw, I was looking at Laxness, for Laxness, and I saw Independent People, Iceland's Bell, and World Light all in a line there, but no Under the Glacier. So I was like, "Oh, I'll just pick these up and see. Maybe Under the Glacier, I can order online or something." They're bright colors. I think they display well. Um, Sort of where I have them in my place. And so I picked them up, and Independent People was one of my favorites. I think I'm a very independent person in and of itself. So I think that's why it called to me. I could relate to the main character in some instances. And that's sort of why I like reading these classic books is to I find it so interesting relating to one, characters that don't exist, and two, characters that are maybe 100 years old. In this case, you know, 70 years old or something like that. Um, so in a gist, Independent People tells the story of our main character. His name is Bjartur. He's a farmer in Iceland, a sheep farmer, um, who spent the first maybe 20 years of his life essentially in indentured servitude to the basically like the pseudo king of this town that he is from. He saves up all he can for 20 years and buys his freedom from his king and moves out to the countryside to become his own independent person and farm his sheep and live off the land and just be his own person. It's a family drama in the sense that he raises his family to be like him, but they don't necessarily want to have the same life that he has. They don't see eye to eye. They don't see the values that he possesses and having his own independence and what that means to him because he didn't have it for so long. Um, and they want to be included in things that the town is doing and be included in some of the king's affairs. Or one of them wants to travel to the United States and start a life there. Um, One of them wants to see the world, and he has no interest in any of that. And it's just interesting to maybe it is sort of a fictional story on parenting as well, which can be interesting. A interesting spin to it that I've never really thought about how to deal with these strong-minded people because he is very strong-minded. So he raised strong-minded children, but their views are just vastly different to his. And how does he eventually cope with that? Um, and there's some fantastical elements of it. There's like an essence of like a curse that's been put on this land that he's been farming, and maybe the curse is why his children have turned out the way they have and how he deals with that. It's very shallow, that like fantastical element. It's not really anything more than what I've just described. So it's not, I wouldn't call it like a fantasy per se. But yeah, it was just sort of everything that I was looking for in a book. It has some of the most beautiful prose I've ever written. The descriptions of these Icelandic valleys and farmlands are very, very good. And so from there, naturally, I bought basically his entire works. There's still a couple I'm missing. Um, and yeah, I think they just display well, and that's where they're sitting. The middle ones here is more coffee table books. It probably wouldn't be the most aesthetically pleasing if I just had 10 coffee table books stacked on top of each other, like the Great Wall of China. This one here, more Frank Lloyd Wright. This is like a pop out coffee table book of some of his residential properties, more of his more popular ones, I would say. His most popular one is called Falling Water. It just got a big display on that there, so it folds out probably 4 times as long as that book. And it's just another interesting thing to flip through. And then below that, the Harry Potter fan in me, I think I got that when mom found out I was into reading. That's like a behind the scenes of the Harry Potter movies, like a giant almanac, so to speak. So just another interesting to flip through. And then juxtaposed by all my philosophy works right next to it of Harry Potter behind the scenes next to the Nicomachean Ethics. I guess that's a that's my channel in a nutshell.
Do you study philosophy in college or?
I didn't know. I studied finance and business analytics. I don't know where this philosophy kick really came from, but should be interesting. I'm interested in like the works of Soren Kierkegaard. I think I have a couple of his. His is more is like philosophy and theology combined mainly. I think Fear and Trembling is another. It's like a retelling of the story of uh, a biblical story. I'm forgetting the name off the top of my head. Abraham, I believe. What was it?
Job.
Yes, that yeah. Um. So yeah, should be interesting to maybe read that section of the Bible and then read Kierkegaard's interpretation. The pride and joy is sitting under my TV, held up on these reclaimed African wood bookends that my dad got for me from a mission trip in Africa. Actually, he does like a yearly medical mission in Africa, and so this most recent time he went, he got me these bookends from African trees that's not stained or anything. That's the actual color of the wood that is in the specific tree from Africa. So I thought no more of a momentous book collection to hold up than this completed Oxford Illustrated Charles Dickens. All 21 volumes, including his essays from when he went to the United States, his unfinished novel in The Mystery of Edwin Drood. Yeah. Short story collections, Christmas books, all of his Christmas short tales. There's also Christmas stories, which is short stories. Christmas books is like holiday themed, almost like newspaper snippings that he wrote during his publications. Obviously, there's American Notes and Notes from Italy, where he did his travels abroad, and then all of his famous works. So I found these were a good deal. I found these, I don't know what I was doing, probably doom scrolling on Facebook Marketplace is where I found them. They were about 2 hours away from me, and the lady wanted $100 for the entire series, for the entire set. It had been listed for like 14 minutes, and I immediately was like, I'll do it in cash in 2 hours, and she lives 3 hours away, so I'm like, I just gotta get over there and get these. So only one of them had been read. I think the faded one, I think is Christmas Stories, is the only one that had been read and just sort of left out on a couch and got sun faded over a couple of months. But other than that, none of them had ever been read before. And so this is just definitely I will call it like a family heirloom in terms of curating my own personal library, like a statement piece.
What's your favorite of all these?
So I haven't read all of them. Of the ones I've read, I really enjoy Great Expectations. It was one of my favorite books of last year. I guess funny enough, it is sort of a family drama, but it's also like a critique on various classes of society during this time. I guess a brief high level overview. We follow Pip, who is basically just thrust into high society from a very poor family, seemingly out of nowhere, and how he deals with that and how people treat him differently and the just crazy nonsense he gets up to with all his money. I think was just very interesting, and definitely some family drama between his benefactors and his own family. When I've read Pickwick Papers too, obviously I want to get around to David Copperfield. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts
was-
on Pickwick Papers.
Yeah, that was his first novel. I think it was maybe not even classified as a novel. It was very experimental, I think, at the time. When it came out serialized. I believe all of his works came out serialized in his publication. One as a way for, I think, him to make more money, I guess, to have these installments in his publication, but I think also as well for more people to be able to read his works, they could more easily afford a monthly copy of his newspaper, essentially, rather than a bound copy of his books. And so that's what he did. So starting with Pickwick Papers was his first sort of novel. I think he wrote that when he was 23 years old. And it's in essence sort of like a collection of short stories that very closely go together. They follow the same timeline, we follow the same characters, but it isn't necessarily like a novel from point A to point B. It's a bit experimental, or maybe it just shows the time that it was his first novel and he was still getting his feet under him. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was funny. I listened to the audiobook on portions of it with a British narrator who got that dry wit and humor that I think he does so well, that Dickens does so well. I think it came through more in the audiobook, and then having that voice sort of in the back of my head as I was reading the book too made it that much more enjoyable. His characters seemingly jump off the page. They're almost over exaggerated with their attributes and their names and their just the way they exist in the world that he creates. Um, yeah, that's Mr. Pickwick, and it's sort of all of his main characters down there on the bottom. All the original illustrations in each of the books too. Those are way more illustrated than the Jane Austen novels. I think the Pickwick Papers has something like 70 illustrations. You want to go and grab it? We could do that. Cool. So yeah, Pickwick Papers. This very famous cover scene is the first scene of the book, and so I like how the cover is like chronologically. It's starting how the book starts off. And another thing I like about um here before we get into that, I'll show some pictures. It's very detailed, and oh, maybe I'll show pictures towards the start of the book as to not spoil anything towards the end. But one thing I enjoy about these editions, it has these little captions. Mr. Wardle and his friends at the party, and just very detailed for the times, and they came through so well. It definitely adds a lot to the reading experience. One thing I like about the book is that on every other page, it basically summarizes what you're reading in like a sentence with at the top of the page. Where am I at? There.
Could you just read one of those?
Yeah, uh, says Mr. Winkle on skates. Is like the top of the page, and basically just both pages are talking about Mr. Winkle going ice skating. Um, Another one would be like Sam reads the Valentine, so he gets a mysterious benefactor sends him a Valentine on these 2 pages, and that's sort of the gist of what that happens. So when you do get tripped up on the language, or which will inevitably happen because it was written at such a different time period, um, is nice to sort of have those like anchor points to help pull you through the story end of itself, and the images as well.
Yeah. I just remembered we didn't cover your miniature books, and I don't know if you want to grab that, but that'd be fun
Yeah.
to way to wrap up.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know when I got this, but this is no glare there, exposing myself. There's your channel. But yeah, there is this miniature bookshelf I think I got it as a Christmas present a couple years ago when I first started reading. I'm gonna take some of these out just to show. Um, but I wouldn't call them high definition, but they are images, these sort of mini books. We'll grab some popular ones here. I sort of stuffed them in there so they don't fall out.
Is there a particular manufacturer of this, or is it like homemade? Do you You made it?
I think my mom got it off Etsy, so I think it's made.
And the books, they don't have anything inside them. It's basically the cover.
Yeah, it's just like the cover of the books there. So it's just a bookshelf, like it's just a little piece of like foam board, essentially, with this image. Like basically, it's like one piece of paper and it's glued around the book. So this is, Mockingjay by Susan Collins. Got a couple of the Harry Potter ones. I thought it was interesting that these here's the Harry Potter and the Goblet of the Fire. It's not the highest depth, but you can definitely tell what that is, like without having to squint too much. But then they also have the UK copy of Book 5, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. This is the UK cover, but it's a very colorful, like spine and things of that nature. So it was interesting. I don't know if these are like mass produced. They have to be. I would assume not. Someone is like sitting there with their tweezers and pulling them out. But it was just a nice little. I thought it was just so funny to have like a mini bookshelf on my bookshelf. That's
So
what
that was a gift.
it was. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, here's Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, and I haven't looked through all of these, so we'll have to see. There's not an easy way to get them all out without dumping them on the floor. What are some other good ones here? Yeah, we have another Harry Potter. I think this
I was
is
just doing another bookshelf tour where we were talking about how the British first volume was, it was the British version was Philosopher's Stone, and then America was Sorcerer's Stone.
yeah, because they thought that American kids wouldn't read something called Philosopher's Stone, so they wanted it to sound more cool or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure what the story was, but I thought it was weird because I thought there would be sort of religious parents would be against sorcerer, whereas they wouldn't be against philosopher.
Oh, that could be it too, yeah.
But then that doesn't make sense because there's much more of that religious opposition in America than in Britain. So it didn't make sense as an explanation. So that makes a lot more sense. Actually, that's funny. Uh, so, okay. Do you want to, just kind of give people some final thoughts on your library and then talk about where people can find you and what your plans are for the rest of your channel, for the future of your channel?
Yeah, I guess final thoughts on my library. It's always expanding. I have this empty shelf that will pretty soon not be empty as my future wife moves in with me. Um, I guess I didn't talk about this shelf. That's this tiny little wire shelf. I didn't even include it. I just keep like my current reads on it and things. So I guess I'm currently reading 2 books. I'm reading this book called Frugal Luxuries. Simple pleasures to enhance your life and comfort your soul. I saw someone recommend this on Reddit and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I picked it up. We'll see what that's about. Don't know a whole lot about it, but yeah, this sort of wire shelf is like, I'll call it like my staging shelf for videos and my current reads, and I'll just like organize my thoughts there for the week. Final thoughts on the bookshelves. It'll be adapting as we go. I think I'll be in this apartment for another 2 years or so, so I don't foresee this changing too much. The collection's ever growing. I guess where folks can find me, at Books with Sam 1, I think, because at Books with Sam was taken on YouTube already. Posted videos for about a year or so there, so feel free to stick around. What am I currently reading? Currently reading through a Game of Thrones. So want to watch me suffer through that, as the series will inevitably never be finished. Well, stick around and we'll do that. But I don't know. I just like to have a good time and just talk about the books I like to read, exactly how you do talking about people's bookshelves. I just talk about my own books, and it's a very chilled, laid back vibe. Would be a pleasure to have folks over there, and we'll build this little community. I guess what are plans next for the channel? Nothing set in stone. I'll keep reading. I'll keep making videos on the books I want to read. I guess that's why it's sort of like a never ending content. As long as I read, I'll have books to talk about, and that's sort of just what I like to do. So yeah, no real plans. I guess a couple of like lifelong projects in terms of reading through some of the titans of English literature and Bruce and things of that nature. So stick around as I start those and as I mature and adapt through them. But yeah, not a whole lot of concrete plans, I guess. Just more reading good books and sharing it with even better people.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for sharing your library with us. And we'll have all those links down in the description. Definitely let us know in the comments what you think, and we'll get a nice conversation going there. And check out Sam's channel. So thanks a lot, everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
See you guys.